one of the men that was with Kiwanis, I was not a Kiwanian at the time, asked if I would come and be on a panel for Hobie when it was being held at Heidelberg in Tiffin. And I didn't know that I was supposed to have just 5 or 10 minutes. So when I started, I didn't stop till the whole hour was up, and the other two ladies just got to wave a little bit, and I thought, well, okay, that's the end of me and Hobie. But I've been coming back every year after that. And then I got interested in Kiwanis and joined it, so Hobie became a part of my life. I didn't know what to talk about. They wanted to, whatever your job was or whatever you were involved in, they wanted you to share with the kids. Well, I was just really getting more and more involved in sign language and was teaching at Terra Technical College in Fremont. And there were so many young men there that I tried to talk more to them than I did to the girls. I wanted them to understand how desperately we needed interpreters for the deaf that were male. Because there's a lot of things that they don't want to share at the doctor's office or the lawyer's office or whatever with a woman. They aren't comfortable with it. And at the end of my taking over the thing, Charles Webster came up to me. It was his first time at Hobie, I believe. Tall, skinny, dark-haired young man. He said, I just wanted to tell you that I want to be a doctor. That's my plans for my future. But he said, I will include sign language in everything that I do. And some years later, I saw him again at one of the Hobie events, and he came up and said to me, I have 23, I think it was 23 patients that were deaf that he had shared with himself with sign language. And that is what made it a part of me, because at that time of life, my kids had all grown up. I wasn't needed to be the bus driver, the nurse, the whatever anymore. And sign language gave me a new outlet in my life. And when he became involved in it, and the Lord let me see that, hey, just talking about it brought this young man, just finishing the 10th grade, to the point that he would involve it in his future. Just out of something that I said, made it all the more important to me to be a part of Hobie. The way that the kids were so enthusiastic with it. I watched a bunch of teenagers that came from every side of life that you can think of. None of them were the same. They weren't all rich kids. They weren't all good-looking kids. They weren't all kids that had the best of everything. There were kids in there that had nothing except a dream. They had nothing except somewhere down the line they had a guidance counselor that saw something in them that was worth pulling out of them. And to watch them face life with the enthusiasm that they did that night, to be excited and no drugs involved, nothing that would be out of the way involved, just strictly being allowed to be themselves. They didn't have to put on a front because their mother and dad were watching or brother and sister were there. They were able to just be themselves. And sometimes it was a little ridiculous to be yourself, but they were. And they found out during that time pretty much who they were. Or they got an idea about it that they could work toward. And then most of them wrote me afterwards and said something about, you mentioned this or that, and it really has had an effect on my life. Your encouragement about being able to stand out regardless of what anyone else thinks about it, and do what you feel in your heart you are called to do. And that you don't have to be the best, because I try to impress on them, God does not expect us to be the biggest and the best. All he wants from us, and all that our peers want from us, is just a willingness to try. And to watch these kids try, to watch them come together as a family in just 2 days' time, 3 days' time, and to walk away with friends that last them a lifetime, it meant everything to me. I had children that were grown, grandchildren that were the same age as some of these kids, and I saw hope for my future by watching them find out what life was for their future. And the volunteers, they came and put their all into it. I mean, they didn't hold back their emotions. I saw tears in the eyes of their staff members that were there, of the facilitators. I watched them open their own hearts and just let the whole world see what was inside of them. And that's something a lot of those kids have never been able to do. And it meant the world to me. So I just thank God that for the next 19 years, he says, come on. And I'm sorry about the 1 year that I hurt my knee, and there's a story behind it, but I went, it was snowing, and I was teaching a class in Bellevue at one of the high schools there, and I went to get in my car, and the ice, I slipped, and I slid underneath it. And there was no door handle for me to get out. And had not one of the teachers been a little late coming out, I'd have probably still been stuck on that ice underneath that thing. That's what kept me from being able to go later to Hobie. So I'm careful about the ice anymore. Every year is special. Every day that you're with them is special. Because there's something new every day. There's something new with every student that comes in here. I mean, there's kids that have got so much faith and so much hope for the future. There are other kids that when they come in here, a lot of them had decided on suicide. They just didn't think that there was any place that they fit into. One girl in particular had planned the very night I spoke to kill herself. And something that I said, God used to touch her heart. And from things that I've heard after that, she became a counselor for other students that were thinking about suicide. So Hobie isn't just let you be an entrepreneur or let you do great things in this world as far as the rest of the world can look and see. It's also setting these young people up to where they can do something that maybe nobody else ever notices, but it changes lives. And it gives these kids a chance to find out that there is something for them out there, that there is hope for them. They don't all come from happy homes. And just because you see a smile on their face, that doesn't mean that everything's wonderful. But when they come in here and there's no pressure from anybody else, a lot of them, that's the time that they just bring it all out and get to cleanse their souls of the things that have bothered them in the schools. Molestation, assault as far as being abused at home. A lot of them are beaten at home. You think, no, all this doesn't happen. Yes, it does. A lot of them have no friends, and all of a sudden they come in here, zits on their faces, and their hair looks like it needs an oil change, and all of these things. But there's another student that's going to come up, throw their arms around them and hug them and tell them, hey, I love you. Give me a Hobie hug. And what comes out of that is so important. And every time I see one of these kids just love, or they come in and like Bo did tonight, and hi, and all excited, it gives me a feeling that I'm sure y'all understand, but you'd have to experience it to understand it. I'm almost 78 years old. I come in and there's things that I would love to leave locked outside. And before the day's over, they are outside. All of the negative things that try to eat us alive, you lose them for the time that you're in here. Because there's so much positive thinking, and there's laughter. There's laughter. It's the only positive emotion we've got is laughter. You can't be sick, you can't be mad, you can't be stressed, you can't be anything that's negative when you're laughing. And these kids learn how to laugh. They learn to laugh with you instead of at you. And when they do see someone that's hurting, here comes kids that's never met them before, and they'll gang up around them and suck them into this little family unit here. And when they leave with a new family, with a whole new outlook on life. And I can't imagine not being a part of it. And in the beginning, I was so thankful every year when they would say, I'll give you a call. And then when I finally got the call. But in the past, maybe 10 years, they say, well, we'll see you next year. And I've got something to look forward to until next year. Now, I've got a family, I've got grandchildren, I've got great-grandchildren, but I've also got a Hobie family that's just as precious to me. I believe that God allowed Hugh to not have children of his own so that all of these thousands and thousands of young people that have gone through Hobie could have a surrogate father like him. He was a tremendous actor. I used to enjoy Wyatt Earp all the time. But when I found out it was a part of him, I was shocked. I honestly, took me a while to understand that, hey, this cowboy actor has got a heart so big that it's included all the kids in the world. Because it's not just the Hobie kids that come. I think his love goes way beyond that. Hugh O'Brian opened up a way for not just the students, but for me, for you, for the young people that come back the next year as facilitators themselves and become involved in it. I was amazed, to be honest, and I'm a little bit jealous of everybody that's met him, and I never have. That's okay, I'll see him later. If not here on this earth, I'm sure I'll see him in heaven, because what he's done, God has to have put a special blessing on him. Then there was a young man that the first time I met him, part of what I talk about was there. And I'm teasing about, I admire tight tush, and I do. And afterwards, he and his friend had come, they had on tie-dyed shirts. They had the headbands on and all of this. And the two of them came up to me and he said, how about checking out this Fanny? Long hair and all of that. The next time I saw him, his hair was cut. He was in a dress suit. And he had just totally devoted himself to Hobie, to making sure that other young students, that other young people found what he found. And they'd almost have to be the ones to tell you what they found. I can't tell you what's in their hearts. The only thing I know is that I want to do this until the day God says come home. So I figure I've got about another 22 years. I figure when I turn 100, I'll say, okay, Lord, I'm tired now. You can take me home. But as long as Hobie will have me, I want to be a part of it. I had mentioned at one time, when I was speaking, I had mentioned Charlie Webster. He was there at Finley, I guess, and come up to me. I hadn't seen him in years, and was telling me where he had been and what he was doing with his life, that he was being a doctor and yet he was teaching some at the same time or whatever, and his wife was there. And I mentioned this when I spoke. And this young man, about my height then, he's a little taller now, came up to me. And he said, you know, I want to be a doctor too. And I may try to learn sign language, but I just wanted to tell you that, like Mr. Webster, I want to be a doctor. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll pray for you. And the next year, he was given an award or something to where he was able to go to London to study after he graduated from high school, to study medicine. You know, here's a kid that heard. There are deaf men out there that really and truly need to have the doctors speak to them, to understand them, to be able to reach down and let them share whatever's going on in their lives. The deaf want to share their lives with hearing people. And he came up and said, hey, I want to be a doctor. And then to see it in black and white that he had been given a chance to go to London. That's what Hobie did. You know, a young girl that the first time she saw me signing decided that she wanted to learn sign language too, and she came up to me afterwards when she was just a sophomore, finishing sophomore. And she said, I'm going to take a class on signing. Her skills are absolutely fantastic. She teaches the choir how to sign the songs that they're doing at the end down at Southwest. She had a baby. She couldn't come as one of the workers that year, but she came back so that she could teach the choir how to sign. Now I'm gonna cry. But it's okay, you know, tears of the white wine of the soul, let them fly. And to watch some of the kids cry just really will tear your heart out, because for the first time they're able to be honest with their feelings. Hobie's not just, it's not just being able to learn more about politics or more about the work area or more about education. It's not just that. It is that, but it's also learning more about yourself, more about the people around you, more about being able to just say, hey, I want to do this. And even better than that, I've watched some of them learn how to say, no, I can't. Because if we jump in there and we volunteer for everything, then there's some kids that aren't going to get to volunteer because you took it over. And I've watched some very capable young people say, no, I can't, so that someone else can come in and say, yes, I can. For every one of them, it's a life-changing. There's going to be some that are going to walk away without having anything, because nothing's perfect. But I can't believe that they'll go their whole lives without finding something that they had at Hobie that becomes a part of their lives later on. You know, everybody's not going to grab it right that minute. They're not going to get a hold of the rope and hang on for dear life. They're going to let that moment slip by. And then later, the thoughts are going to keep coming back and back again. And they're going to see, because there's Hobie kids anywhere you go. Anywhere in this world that you go, there's Hobie ambassadors. Some of them are in their 60s now. It's been going on for 50 years. And it'll come back to them, and they step into the arena where they would have been as kids, but it didn't happen then, but it happened later, and I really believe that. If Hobie can use me to help one young person see past the hurt that's happened in their lives and understand that that hurtful thing is a stepping stone that they can better themselves from. If they can learn to be better instead of bitter. You see all the hope that has gone into the eyes of these people. And when I watch them, and they run up to each other and hug one another. When I see a kid sitting over there that looks like, I bet he had to eat at the table with the lunch people, have all these others pull him out or pull her out into the group. It makes everything I've seen in my life worthwhile. Because if we didn't have the bad, we wouldn't appreciate the good. And if we didn't have people like you, our Hobie kids wouldn't have a chance. So I just thank you for letting me be a part of it and a part of you.